Hello everybody, Pat Richard, Office Apps and Services MVP, here to do another device review for UCUnleashed.com. Today we're going to look at the Yealink VC210 collaboration bar. So let's talk about collaboration bars here for a second. Obviously when we have a bunch of users, there's plenty of client options for users, PC, Mac, Linux, all your web browsers. You've also got your mobile devices, and things like that. When we get into rooms, meeting rooms, small, medium, and large conference rooms, then we have the Microsoft Teams room systems, or MTRs. We can also use some legacy equipment, such as that by Cisco or Poly, using third-party services, PexIP, BlueJean, the Poly Real Connect service, right? But when you've got these spaces in between, right, so something like a huddle space where a couple people might get together and talk about something, or a focus room, focus rooms up, 2 people up to 5 or 6 people together to kind of jump on a video call or collaborate with some coworkers or whatever the case may be. The common method previously was somebody would drag a laptop into that room, right? And everybody would kind of crowd around the laptop and join a video call. Not the most ideal experience, right? And focus rooms and huddle spaces weren't really the most ideal host for an MTR, right? MTRs tend to be a little bit more expensive, kind of more than what you need in those spaces, right? So now there's kind of this new space called collaboration bars, where we have something that fits into smaller spaces, can utilize smaller screens designed for smaller audiences, right? They're less expensive, they don't have as many features, but they're great for jumping on quick calls or scheduled calls with colleagues or customers. Yealink came out with a perfect solution for collaboration bars for those spaces, and that's the VC210. So the VC210 and most of the collaboration bars are basically designed to be, self-contained, all-in-one units that are easy to deploy, don't take custom integrators or whatever the case may be. You can pop them on the top of the monitor. In some of those, you mount them below the monitor, whatever the case may be. They can be mounted on the wall, but easy to deploy, right? So let's talk about what's included with the VC210. We have the VC210 itself, which comes with the little privacy hood included. We also have the remote control, so a handy little remote that is great for your on-screen controls, right? And then for audio, Yealink pairs it with their cool CP900 speakerphone. Now the CP900 is actually a standalone device that you can buy separately, and we've seen devices kind of this form factor before, right? These are great for connecting to your laptop for, conference calls when you're traveling, you're in a hotel room, you don't want to wear a headset or listen through the puny speakers on your laptop. They work really well. They've got great sound quality. And then also that comes in the box is this PoE injector, right? So everything's PoE nowadays, and this is no different. Typical PoE injector, Ethernet in and out, and an AC power jack on the back. In this particular example, I've paired it with an HP Elite Display E230T. This is a touch-enabled monitor. Really, it doesn't have to be touch-enabled. That's why Yealink includes the remote control. And it can be a bigger screen. I just use this size screen because it works well in my environment here in my home office. So let's talk about the actual VC210 device itself. As I mentioned, they're self-contained, right? So it includes the compute power within the device itself. It runs the Android 9 operating system and a dedicated collaboration bar version of the Teams client. Okay, it's got a fixed 4K camera on it with a 120-degree field of view. It does auto framing, so it can follow people around the room a little bit. using some software auto framing. That can be disabled if you'd like, but I found it works really well. And then these black lines on the front are actually 6 beamforming mic arrays. They're not really here to pick up voice. What they're here for is the auto framing, right? They figure out where sound is coming in relation to the device itself to help it figure out where to focus the camera. Now, it sits right on top of the monitor, okay? And in this example, it has a little mount that can fold flat. On the bottom of the mount is a 1/4 20 socket like we typically see on camera tripods. So if you wanted to mount it on a tripod, that would be fine. You can also mount it onto, say, a wall bracket. So if you're using a big screen and you want to mount this on the wall next to it, maybe to get the right height, you could mount it on a bracket. In fact, Yealink even includes a 1/4 20 thumb screw to secure it. Also on the back are all the jacks, right? So we have 2 USB ports, 1 HDMI port, a Kensington lock hole, 3.5 millimeter audio out jack for speakers if you wanted to use some external speakers, and an Ethernet jack. So as I mentioned earlier, it's designed to use PoE with the PoE injector. Cool thing about the VC210 and PoE is you can use it as a typical PoE injector where you have a switch port, one Ethernet cable going to a switch port, one going to the back of the VC210. That works great. But let's say you don't have a network jack in the room. You can do just the Ethernet out to the VC210 with power. The VC210 has built-in Wi-Fi. So once you power it up for the first time, you can go into the configuration settings and configure the Wi-Fi. So it's really a great flexible solution. The VC210 also supports Bluetooth. So similar to what we see in the Microsoft Teams room systems, the MTRs, you can join from a mobile device. You can drag in the VC210 into your meeting just like you can with an MTR. So really some nice features built into this device that make it a great solution. The remote control, as I mentioned a minute ago, is included. It's pretty simple, not a lot of buttons on here. It's not very overwhelming. So for users that walk into the room, it's pretty clear what each of the buttons does. You've got your volume up and down. You've got a dedicated Teams button, a mute button, a hook button, so on hook, off hook, a button to turn the auto framing on or off, and then kind of a 4-way scroll button so you can move around the screen for the different options. So this works great. The touchscreen works better, right? In my experience, the touchscreen is just easier, more intuitive to use because you can just touch the various things on the screen instead of having to use the remote control to kind of move around using the arrow buttons to get to your desired button. The CP900, as I mentioned, kind of a standalone product, but Yealink does bundle it with this, with the VC210. It's full duplex. It has the same type of beamforming microphone arrays that we see in the VC210, but obviously these are for picking up regular audio. You've got your mute button, your on-hook and off-hook buttons, your volume control, and a dedicated Teams button at the bottom. You know, if you've got this plugged into your laptop and hit that Teams button, it brings up the Teams client. If you press it while it's connected, then it'll go ahead and join the meeting that you're scheduled for, right? So as we see, it joined my meeting. The CP900 will do Bluetooth as well. So not only can you plug it into the back of your VC210 to use there, but you can pair it to your cell phone if you wanted to listen to music or use it as a typical speakerphone. It works great. So let's talk about what we would do to manage this device once we have it in your organization. As we can see, we have a new option within the Teams Admin Center where we can manage our collaboration bars. So let's say we need to manage these devices now. We don't need to go around to every one of these to update the firmware or figure out what IP address is on it or change different settings. We can do that directly from Teams Admin Center. Right, so what we're used to seeing under the devices branch is the phone option where we can manage our Teams certified phones. Collaboration bars also show up there now too, and as we see here in my example, we see my VC210 logged in as me, right? So in my home office, I logged it in as me so that we use the same calendar for joining meetings, but in a shared space, you would want to join this. You would want to log it in as, say, a room account, right? So not specific to a single user. But as you can see, we can view different things that have taken place on the device itself, firmware updates, config updates, whatever the case may be. We can select it, we can restart the device, we can remove it, we can edit it, including changing to a more friendly name or adding an asset tag. We can also assign a configuration profile. So if you have a configuration profile, which kind of includes most of your vendor agnostic settings, then we can assign that to the individual device. I did test that. It seemed to work great. I did it for things like the screensaver and power options, setting the admin pin and things like that. It worked great. One thing I also did too was after I got this device was I pushed out new firmware, and it's just like in the phones section. Under action, you'll see it'll say update available. You'll be able to click on it, assign it to the phone, and away it goes. It takes a few minutes, and then the device automatically updated that firmware, restarted. I came back into the Teams Admin Center a little while later, looked at the history, and said everything was successful. So real easy to manage these devices. There's not a lot to have to worry about. Now, in my experience with this device over the past couple months, in which I've been involved in literally dozens and dozens of meetings with it, I gotta say I really preferred the touch screen over the remote control. The touchscreen was just quicker and easier to use over the remote control. The remote control, it can be a little difficult to kind of find out how to control different things, move around the screen. You have to scroll through things in order to get to them. It just wasn't really the best experience for me compared to the touchscreen. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning, you don't have to pair this with a touchscreen. That's purely optional. But I'm glad that I went this route, really. It made a big difference using a touchscreen for this. And Yealink has gotten some feedback about the remote control as well. And as a result, has come out with kind of an upgraded version of the VC210. So instead of coming with the CP900 and the remote control, it will now come out, without coming with the CP900 and the remote control, you can now get it optionally with Yealink's CP960. And the CP960 is kind of a starfish looking typical conference room phone, kind of like the Poly Trio, that can be used as audio, but the nice thing about it is it also has a touchscreen interface for controlling the VC210, including camera control, so you can move the camera around, the camera framing around, control joining a meeting, volume up and down, etc. So a little more flexibility if you're really not into using the remote control in your environment. And of course, you know, what happens when this is, you know, lost under some couch cushion somewhere and you don't use a touch screen, right? So you're in for an unpleasant experience. So It was a nice attempt, and I'm sure some people will really like to use this. Um, and if you don't do a lot of stuff other than just join a call occasionally, then it might be perfect. But for me, the touchscreen was the better route to go. I didn't have a CP960 to test with, but I did check out some documentation. It looked like it kind of bridges that gap between the remote control and the touchscreen. Now, MSRP on the VC210 is about $1,300, including the CP960 and the remote control. The HP Elite Display 230 comes in at just under $250, I think. But like I said, you could use a bigger screen if you wanted to. If you were using this in, a home office like I did, this 23-inch screen is the perfect size. It sits here on my desk. It's great for one-to-many or one-to-one calls. Didn't take up too much space. It's got a great picture. And it was very responsive to my touch. There's no calibration required when you set it up, really. And the whole thing was very easy to set up. From the time I cut the seal on the box until the time I powered it up and got to a login screen was probably 12 minutes, 14 minutes, somewhere around there. Real easy to set up, real easy to use. I think that this is a great solution for those small collaboration spaces, focus rooms, huddle spaces, home offices. Lots of people working from home now, right, because of COVID-19. So a great solution. Let's look at the sign-in experience. So I'll sign out from my device right here. And just like when you log in to, or you plug in a new Teams-based phone, right? So like the Yealink T55 or whatever the case may be, login is exactly the same. You're presented with a login screen. The user can log in their credentials on the screen itself. We'll see here. Right, sign in, typical Microsoft login. We can also log in from another device. You touch that option or you navigate to it from the remote control. You get the code on the screen from a desktop or a laptop. You go to microsoft.com/device login. You enter the code that's on the screen. Okay, when you do that, it'll ask you what account you want to log in with. I pick my account. As soon as I enter my credentials, the device will go ahead and sign in. Right? Tells me that we're signing in, and when we're all done, you get this kind of splash screen. Click on the got it, and we see this screen right here. Now, here we see the next meeting that is in my calendar, since we're logged in as myself, right? We can look over at the next call as well, if it's soon enough. Really, joining a meeting is as simple as touching the join link, right? It will go ahead and join the call. Okay. And we get, here I get stuck in the lobby, right? So we can use the remote control to see the participants list. We can navigate through your typical buttons that you see in your normal Teams client, etc. So it's really straightforward, easy to use. I think it's a great solution that really anybody can use. If the account that it's logged into is capable of making PSTN calls, so we're voice enabled, then what we can do is bring up the keypad, right, and call. We can also do a new meeting, so kind of a meet now, like we see in the client, right? And that's pretty much it. It's a great little device. I've really enjoyed having it on my desk here for a couple months. Like I said, dozens of meetings, and it's worked right out of the box. I mean, I didn't look at any documentation or anything, and it was up and running in 12 minutes or so. So real easy to use. I would say that if you're thinking about doing this, Yealink's been running a bunch of discount programs. Check their social media, check the Yealink.com to see what discounts are available, and you can save some money. So there it is, the Yealink VC210. Hope you enjoyed this review, and we'll see you again on UCUnleashed.com.